In my years on the force, I've seen darkness that defies belief. But nothing has chilled me to the bone like the case of David Parker Ray, a man who transformed his very dwelling into a chamber of unspeakable torment. Today, I'm taking you inside the mind of this twisted perpetrator and the investigation that nearly broke me. This is the story of the toy box offender. I wasn't always drawn to the macabre, but as a detective, you learn that evil often wears a familiar face. David Parker Ray was born in Belen, New Mexico in 1939. By all outward appearances, he was just another troubled soul, but behind closed doors, his psyche was riddled with the scars of abuse and neglect. Rumor has it that his early years were steeped in a disturbing exposure to violence and explicit content, a foundation that would later manifest in his own brand of horror. Let me be clear, what he did was not the work of a man in a moment of madness. No, this was a calculated descent into cruelty. I remember reviewing his file. It was a mosaic of red flags, a pattern that slowly revealed a man who not only relished in control, but meticulously planned every agonizing detail. Now, when I say toy box, I don't mean a child's plaything. I refer to the unassuming, soundproof trailer he kept near Elephant Butte Lake. But behind its closed doors lay a labyrinth of torture devices, a macabre workshop designed to inflict maximum pain. I've seen pictures that send shivers down my spine. Tables rigged with restraints, chains hanging from the ceiling, and a display of tools that would be better suited for a medieval dungeon. As I pored over the evidence, I kept asking myself, how can a man turn human suffering into a grotesque art form? This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. Every detail in his twisted blueprints was a testament to years of dark experimentation. Ray's method was as methodical as it was monstrous. He preyed on vulnerable women, those whose disappearances might slip under the radar. Once in his clutches, his victims were subjected to a calculated barrage of assault and physical torment. He even went as far as recording pre-taped messages that outlined in chilling detail what was about to befall them. It wasn't just about physical control. It was psychological warfare.
Hello there, witch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You were disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. A scary thought. Yes, but there are no options. Nothing that you can say or do will change the fact that it's going to happen. Many girls beg and plead. Almost all of them cry a lot, especially during the first 3 or 4 days, and some of them scream and threaten. But I have a poster on the wall in the playroom that says it all.
I recall one of the recordings. I listened to it with a clenched jaw. His tone was disturbingly calm, as if he were narrating a mundane instruction manual rather than the horrors he was about to unleash. That cold, detached delivery, it was the voice of someone who had long since lost any shred of humanity. And if you think Ray acted alone, think again. The investigation revealed that he wasn't the lone wolf of depravity. His daughter, Glenda Jean Jessie Ray, and his partner, Cindy Hendy, were entangled in his web of abuse. Their involvement only deepened the darkness of this case, turning it into a family affair steeped in shared perversion. In interviews, one former accomplice, now long in hiding, murmured about the family business of pain. It wasn't just a crime. It was a collective descent into a hellish realm that no sane person should ever enter. The breakthrough came on a day I'll never forget. It was March 1999, and our case was gathering dust on the back burner until one victim, desperate and defiant, managed to escape. I remember the call like it was yesterday. A voice, trembling yet determined, reported that she had managed to break free from her captor's hold. She was barefoot, disoriented, and shackled, yet her resolve was unyielding. I rushed to the scene, my mind racing through the possibilities. When I arrived, I found her on a desolate road, a figure of both terror and strength. In that moment, I knew that we had our chance to bring down this monster. Her escape was not just an act of bravery. It was the key that unlocked a Pandora's box of evidence. I spent countless sleepless nights revisiting every detail. I found myself obsessing over minor inconsistencies, a smudge of blood here, a misplaced tool there. And then it struck me, the human element. This man, with all his calculated cruelty, was still vulnerable to mistakes. In one overlooked detail, a unique tool mark, we finally found the thread that unraveled his web. It was a painstaking process. I'll never forget the moment when I realized that every piece of evidence was a silent scream for justice, a plea from the forgotten victims. That was the day I vowed that no matter how deep the darkness, we'd bring the truth to light. Once the evidence was irrefutable, the wheels of justice started turning. In 2001, the courtroom became the stage where Ray's depravity was laid bare. I stood in that sterile courtroom, watching as the man behind the suffering was sentenced to 224 years. It was a sentence that, on paper, should have offered closure, but the absence of bodies and the lingering questions about his many missing victims left a bitter aftertaste. Justice, in this case, was as slow and cumbersome as the wheels of a rusted-out trailer. And yet, for every victim who had suffered in silence, it was a small victory. I couldn't shake the thought that for every case we closed, there were countless others left in the shadows. Today, I revisit this case not to relive the horror, but to remind myself and you that evil wears many faces. Even though David Parker Ray is no longer among us, his legacy of pain lingers. Investigations suggest he may have been responsible for as many as 60 victims, though definitive proof remains elusive. Bone fragments, stray testimonies, and unexplained disappearances keep the mystery alive. In the aftermath, I often find myself haunted by the questions that never found answers. Were there others who aided him in his atrocities? How many lives were irreparably altered by his calculated cruelty? And, most importantly, how do we, as a society, ensure that such evil never hides in plain sight again? I speak not just as a detective, but as someone who has stared into the abyss and emerged with a commitment to honor every voice silenced by such crimes. Every case like this is a stark reminder that vigilance is our only shield against the darkness that lurks in the corners of our world. As I wrap up this recounting of one of the most disturbing chapters in my career, I want you to understand that the pursuit of justice is never truly over. Every investigation, every testimony, every whispered secret in the dark fuels our determination to uncover the truth. I carry the memories of those lost souls with me, and I promise that as long as I draw breath, their stories will not be forgotten. So, take this as a cautionary tale. Evil can hide behind ordinary doors, masked by the mundane. But rest assured, as long as there are those willing to look into the darkness, the truth will always find a way to break through. I'm Detective Jack Graves, and this is my vow, to keep chasing shadows until every secret is brought into the light. Thank you for joining me on this grim journey through one of the most harrowing cases of modern times. If you found this account as compelling as it is disturbing, consider subscribing for more true accounts from the front lines of criminal investigation. Remember, in a world where evil lurks around every corner, knowledge is our greatest weapon.